Oh, okay, cool. Well, good morning, KWAB.
Good morning.
Let's do it one more time in sync. Let's see if we can get this in sync. All right, good morning, KWAB.
Good morning.
Let's see in the chat, you guys. How are you? Come on, get your faces on there. Come on, Zoomers. All right, so first things first, what do we got? On track escrow with the Price is Right. I'm doing the on track escrow Price is Right today. So you ready? You know the rules, right?
Yeah.
Can't go over the price. Must be closest to the price without going over. And here we go. These have closed in the last, 2 weeks. All right, first one's in East Lancaster. 4 bedrooms, 4 baths, built in 1987. Little over 2,300 square feet. Oh, nice lot size. Let's see. Wow, look at that flooring. Huge backyard. Single story.
575.
What do you think? Come on, put it in the chat and give me the numbers here.
575.
575, 635,
529.9.
how much?
529.9.
529.9,
465.
465,
560,
625, 560, 625.
615,
What do we got up there on Zoom land?
49.
549. All right, you ready? You got it all? Show it to me. Ready? And the price is. Oh, who was the closest? 625. That's 50. How much? 650. 650. 650's got it. Woo! Good job. There you go. All right, don't despair. You have another shot at this. Ready? Here we go. This one's in West Palmdale. 6 bedrooms, 5 baths. 2,000, built in 2006. A little over 3,000 square feet. Healthy lot size. That looks beautiful. Wow, look at that.
That's gotta be fine.
That's on the website, right?
West side? West Palmdale.
So 725.
So come on, Zoomers. Hey, what do we got?
825.
825. 725.
749.9.
749.9.
775.
775.
669.
776.
669.
669. Ken, what'd you say? 799.
999.
How much?
895.
895. Okay, we're all over the place. We are all over the place. Okay, let's see. And the winner is. Whoa!
Right on point.
7.5 on the dot.
Oh, wow.
That's because her house
Cheater.
That was perfect. All right, this is your last chance. We have a West Lancaster home, 5 bedroom, 4 bath, built in 2001, almost 3,000 square feet. Oh, still a nice healthy lot size. And here we go.
Yeah. 639.
639. There's the backyard.
640.
670. 670. What do we got in Zoom World? Do we have a million? Did somebody put a million? 624.
680.
680. 680. Oh, well, you don't want to do the same. You want to maybe
You got
go one less or one
681.
higher.
I'm changing it.
680, 500.
I don't want to go.
625.
Anybody for $1?
What do you got, Tiffany?
All right, let's see. Boom! What is it, Mike? Oh!
I got it.
What did you get?
Way to go.
595 exactly. So I want to remind you to put on track on the contract, right? On-track escrow is here for you and your partner, and we'd like you to put on-track on the contract. Something new, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about what on-track escrow has done new. Guess what we can accept now? It's exciting news. Drum roll, please. Cryptocurrency.
Oh.
Wow. We are able to do cryptocurrency now, so we're locked and loaded and waiting for the crypto to go up so that people can use cryptocurrency. So just to let you know, your escrow partner can do transactions for you with cryptocurrency. Here's another new thing that we've implemented on track. I've got lots for you today. You ready? This one's really great. You know what takes so long when you open an escrow and you have an HOA and you're waiting for the seller to pay so that you can get the HOA docs and escrow sits and waits and you guys sit and wait and they delay the escrow process.
Yeah.
They don't really understand how much of a delay they're creating, but they do, right? Ever experienced that?
Yes.
Well, on-track escrow is going to pay for the HOA doc so that we're able to open and do it right away. So in those first 3 days, because you get your contract when from escrow? When do you get your escrow instructions?
When the EMD is north.
3 days after opening. 3 days after opening. So within those 3 days, we will be ordering those HOA docs. So here are some questions that have been thrown at me. Amy, how can you do that? What happens if the escrow cancels? Well, I trust that our agent will reopen it, and the seller is the same seller, and the property is the same property, and the HOA docs is the HOA docs, and then we'll recoup it. At the close of escrow, we recoup that from the seller. But we do that not only for HOA, it gets even better. Guess what we're doing it on now? City reports. What? Yes, we're gonna pay upfront fees for that city report so that there's no delays. So for both the HOA docs and the city reports, on-track escrow will pay for them upfront and collect the money at the close of escrow. And like I said, if it doesn't close, I trust that you'll reopen. When you have a different buyer, let's say that buyer walks away, and that we will recoup the money at that time.
What do you mean by city reports?
So 9A report, you know.
They're not in our area.
They're not in our area, but a lot of
Okay.
other areas have
They
city
do.
reports that
Yes.
we have to write. So in our area, we don't have that many, but a lot of agents do business out there that will require city reports, so we'll pay that upfront so that there's no delay waiting on the seller. So HOA docs, city reports, and cryptocurrency. That's my new news for you today for on-track escrow.
Oh, yeah.
Do you do that only if we're the listing agent, or no matter who the listing agent is?
No matter who it is,
Wow,
no matter who it is.
so rolling the dice.
I don't think so. I trust the people that we do business with in this company and outside of this company, because a good portion of our business is not only in the KW. We do have outside business that uses us as well. Any other questions?
Yeah, do you get something in writing from the seller? Because I've been burned before by ordering something and they say, well, you ordered it and you haven't paid for it.
So here's the beauty, you're not ordering it, on-track escrow.
So I know, but I mean, what did it say to you? To the
It's in the
company?
general instructions in escrow, in that fine print that says they're responsible for it. But here's the thing, this is not my first rodeo. I've done this in other escrow companies where there's a lot more HOA and 9A reports and all of that, and we've been okay. So I'm not concerned. I fully trust that everything is gonna be fine, and we're the ones who are taking the chance, right? So don't you worry about it, but it's just a value add for you and for your client.
That's amazing.
Presentation.
Okay. So, all right, I have the privilege today of introducing our guest to you. So you're gonna learn a lot today. So I'm glad this room is packed. This is great. So here is Robert Brand to talk to you about disclosures. Robert?
Thank you very much. I'm going to share my screen here, so it will get up there in just a second. And here, I hope everybody can see that. And I will be going for 4 hours, so don't move. No, I'm kidding. I never go overtime, so by 11, unless you needed me to end earlier, I will be done. So glad to be here. I mentioned earlier that the last time I was at your office was probably 15 years ago. I've been doing this for, believe it or not, for 32 years. So I kind of lose track of time and where I've been and so forth. And glad to have Dawn here. We've known each other for a long time. And I do not charge for what I do at all. I do not sell anything at all. So I'm very gladly and graciously sponsored by service providers. And today we have two. It would be Dawn with First American Home Warranty, and then Seth with Fit Property Inspections. I'm not sure if he's on yet. And Dawn, I'm just going to have you up at the beginning because we've been going for a while here and you probably have other things to do. So tell us a little bit about what you do.
Good morning, everybody. Dawn Zerbel with First American Home Warranty. Bob and I have known each other for 27 years because that's how long I've been doing home warranties. I know some of you are doing the math. Bob and I are much too young to have been in the business that long, but there you go. I'm here for all your home warranty needs. I troubleshoot. I talk to your clients. I hold their hands. It's who I am and it's what I do, you guys. And I appreciate the opportunity to work with you. And those of you that weren't on the meeting early, hashtag Team Tino. My nephew's on this season of The Bachelorette. Check it out. And if it makes you compelled to throw me a home warranty order, I'll take it. Have a super fantastic day. I appreciate you all.
Okay. Thank you very much. I don't think I've watched The Bachelor for a long time, but my wife and I, thanks to you, are now watching it. So it's a fun show. And then also Seth with Fit Property Inspections. If he's on, I can't see everybody. He can unmute and say something, and he might come on later, and he might be out in the field busy. But if he doesn't show up, he is a extraordinarily good expert property inspector, home inspector. He's really good on the technical side, really good on the people side, doesn't blow deals for no reason at all, is just a real expert, and he's local to you. So when I send some notes out, which I will after I'm done, I'll have his name and Dawn's name there, so you can readily avail yourself of their phone number, and they could maybe also put their names and numbers in the chat areas. So anyway, we have a big topic. This topic is by far, and only in California, by the way, no other state has this problem like we do, but almost every lawsuit, 90% of them in the state of California, are related to this topic of people moving into a home, buyers moving into a home, and there's something about its physicality that they don't like the roof is bad. They think there's too many cracks in the patio tile, whatever it happens to be. So property condition disclosure represents not all, but almost all litigation, and only in California. I speak all over, but I only speak in California because other states just don't get this. So, and there's a plus to not getting it, I guess, but they don't. I will email to your office some seminar notes that are 5 or 6 pages long that'll cover, I'm sure, everything I'll cover today. And it's something you may want to hang on to for some disclosure information or direction when you're kind of stuck somewhere as to how to write something down. I always like to give a shout out to my hero in the business, Gov Hutchison. He's with Carr, of course. Many of you have probably seen him. He's I think the ultimate authority on all things real estate. And he covers many more topics than I do. I have the privilege of sharing the stage with him occasionally, at least before the pandemic. So go see him when he comes to town if you haven't already. And my one big whopping disclaimer, and I'll get on with it, just about all larger real estate firms do or follow the protocol that I'll be talking about. There are some exceptions, but I'll just say that some disclosure techniques are handled differently and always follow company policy. And with that, let's go. And I have about 3 hours of material here, so I just parse through until time to stop. So, and I think I'm supposed to stop at, somebody shout out if I'm wrong, by 11, I never go over time, 11 o'clock, or I thought somebody said maybe 5 to 11 or something, but if you know better than I do, let me know. Okay, on the visual inspection, on the transfer disclosure statement, the TDS or the tedious form, it says that we do a visual inspection. So a question that may arise is, does that mean that when we're doing the AVID, that the only things that we are going to be looking at are things that we can see, that we can, or looking for are things that we can see? Because it does say visual inspection. The answer to that question is actually no. And that's because even though the TDS, which came out in 1986, so it's been out a long time, and this wording on it hasn't changed, what it has, what would you say, morphed into over the years is to mean any sensory perception. Something you notice, no matter how you notice it, it's not just not visual. So a couple of examples. Let's say I'm doing my AVID thing at a 2-story home. I mean, I've got the cellars, for example. I'm just there by myself getting that form done. I'm upstairs, and as I go from bedroom to bedroom upstairs and traverse the hallway, I get the impression that the floor seems to be very slightly uneven. Not a lot, barely at all. Sometimes I don't notice it. So I'm done up there, and before I go downstairs, I take a look at that floor again. I, get kind of eye level with it downstairs, and I say to myself, it looks fine to me. Maybe there isn't a problem, but I have noticed something. 2 or 3 times I've noticed something. So that would fit into the realm of disclosure, probably a lightweight one, like upstairs hallway floor appears to have some unevenness. When the buyers move in, if they don't notice anything at all, no harm, no foul. They won't do anything about it. But if they say, there is something wrong with this floor, you have covered yourself, done your job, and done your job for your company too. I warned you about that unevenness. So it works no matter how what the outcome will be. Second example, I'm downstairs in the family room, and there is a very, very strong smell, strong odor of kind of like a musty smell there. And it's just pervasive. It's just everywhere. And I'm thinking that even when the house is cleaned up, the sellers move out and the house is cleaned up, they even take carpet out or whatever they're taking out. This is such a heavy odor that it's got to bother somebody when they move in. And so that would be a red flag I would want to include in the AVID. There's a pretty good chance it would come up. And you got to be careful how you word it. You don't want to say, you never want to write down, excuse me, the word mold or anything like the word mold. The word mold is way outside of our standard of care. Words that you may, and I will have all of this in the notes. You don't have to write it down, like obvious odor noted, apparent odor noted, even if you are sure it's like mildew. Well, mildew and musty and mold are terms that we as real estate licensees should never use because they're too much like musty, and mildew are too much like mold, and mold is treated as a separate entity by people who are qualified to look for it and make determinations. So any sensory perception doesn't have to be by visual alone. And let me give you a couple of other points here. As you go through the AVID, each room, the contents of each room, if you're going to make comments, and if you're not, I'll mention that, should only contain defects or red flag comments. So by way of definition, a defect is like a broken window, as an example. So like to my left here, there's a window, and if the window was broken and this was a house I was doing, that would be my whole disclosure: broken window, cracked window. It's not a big crack, small crack in the upper right corner crack. It's just a cracked window. Nothing about the baseball or the frisbee or the rock that hit it. Nothing about cause of action, just what I observe, because it's not my listing and I don't know. And by the way, if I've been told, I still don't know. And if you have the listing and you've been told, you still don't know for sure, they can make that clear to you in court. So we want to keep it really simple. It's a cracked window. Again, not big, not large, it's cracked window. That's it. The other category would be a red flag category. You see the stain in the ceiling there. Well, let's say it was even a little bit bigger than this. I'll have to get a picture of a bigger stain, I guess. You look up there and you think, well, it looks like kind of a big water stain or whatever. Well, you don't want to say big. It's, adjectives. Let me mention something about adjectives I don't think I did before. Adjectives are the friend of advertising, and they are the arch enemy of disclosure. So in advertising, you can say beautiful, wonderful sofa, even though it's not all that wonderful. Magnificent this, phenomenal that, and nobody ever does anything about it. But in disclosure, lots is done about those kinds of terms. So what am I going to do? I'm going to just mention that there's a stain in the ceiling. Maybe below on the ceiling, there's a window above the window or something like that to locate it. But I don't want to provide any descriptors other than just letting them know that there's a stain there. That's just makes our job so much easier than to try to do investigation and figure out what happened here, and we don't have to do that. We just point out what we observe, whether it's a problem or not. So there are several challenges. For time's sake, I will just mention two of them. One I call the ceiling fan challenge. So let's say I'm in the living room. Not all homes have a living room. This one does. I want to make sure that that's known, and it'll be mentioned in the avid by the room name. But I can't find anything wrong anywhere. Everything looks great. And I don't want to write down, everything looks great or no problems or something. But I say, oh, there's a ceiling fan there. I'll mention that. So I write down ceiling fan noted on the avid. Well, the problem is the ceiling fan is not a defect and it's not a red flag. So it doesn't belong on the form. So no go on that. Now, sometimes I'm asked, well, I got to come up with something. Well, you really don't have to. There are some things you can come up with that are so generic that will suffice just to make a comment, but just sticking with this right now, there would be no disclosure because these are not under the purview of commentary by the public or even a real estate licensee. Just ceiling fan noted, period. And I'll touch on that again in a minute. Another really small thing that we're tempted, and we're only tempted to write down the insignificant small things when the home is in such magnificent shape, we just can't find anything wrong usually. We got to have something to say. So at this room, there's a very kind of large spider web in the corner up by the ceiling. Well, a spider web is not a defect or a red flag. It does not affect the value or desirability of the property. So I would ignore that and just write in nothing noted there. Now, let me just kind of go on about the word or the term nothing noted. Defects, red flags, that's the visual inspection. Okay, you're in a room, you looked around adequately and you can't find anything to say. So it's nothing noted. Okay, well, here is the dilemma. It's a pristine home. It is in absolutely magnificent shape. And you're thinking, I can't find anything wrong anywhere in here. And so I'm going to have to put nothing noted, if that's okay with your company, for every single place in the house. And it kind of looks like I never showed up. Now, you know that you did, but that's an accusation I hear a lot. The agent never showed up because you could write down nothing noted sitting in your car somewhere. So this is a solution. It's a really great one, if I may say so. Just about every home in Southern California, or in California in general, probably not around Yosemite or Big Bear, but the metropolitan areas, the exterior of the home has stucco. We don't want to use the word stucco. It's a brand name. Like drywall is a brand name too, but that's a whole nother topic. But anyway, exterior siding is a better term. So it has this kind of exterior siding, and it's got, like on the right side, cement walkways, driveways, curves, poolside patios or whatever. I think since we all live here, everybody will agree you cannot find surfaces like this that are crack free. It's like they don't exist. So let's say I've got this property I'm looking at, and looking at the left, I can see a couple of the stucco or the exterior siding, a couple of small cracks right there. So I may be tempted to say there are some small cracks at that part of the house or something. The problem is there's going to be little cracks everywhere, so that's part of the problem. So I like the word some. It's a great word, just kind of like I already talked about with some cracks or whatever.
Oh, I know.
The thing is, like, if you have a buyer that calls you back to a property that you've been to, and the buyer says, you know, you were in this living room and there were 4 very nice paintings in the room, and we thought they were going to stay, but they're not here anymore. I can see the nail holes. And then she realizes, or he realizes, they really weren't part of the deal or whatever. Some agents think that their disclosure should be, there are nail holes or screw holes in, you know, where pictures used to be. But that's not a good idea, because there's just a better way of saying it. The expression that I like the best, let me move ahead to a slide here, is in other observed or known conditions not specified above. That's on the Avid. It's not hard to see, but I think it's maybe the last or second to the last page. You don't have any idea where to put this, because, you know, it varies all over the property. You can say, and let me just back up to that wording because it's very important, some cracks noted at exterior siding and backyard patio and driveway or something like that. That demonstrates that you looked around, you did not rely on insignificant things that nobody cares about, and you provided an adequate disclosure. So that's a good place to put it, unless you find it in another, something to say in another part of the house, which is always possible. So just a couple of things to be careful of. All right. This is a really simple one, very brief. How we will describe something different than another real estate professional will in a house, because our standard of care is different. So if the termite guy is there and he's looking at this windowsill that looks like it's kind of messed up, he'll probably disclose dry rot noted at windowsill. That's totally within his purview. That's what he's there to do. That's what his standard of care is. But when we see the same thing, even if we're right next to the termite inspector, since we are not a licensed termite inspector or anything near it, there's other variations. But California, unlike home inspectors, does license home inspectors. And we would probably write something down like damage noted to windowsill. It does not take a pest control operator who's looking for wood destroying organisms to come up with that last disclosure, but that's within our standard of care, that there's just damage there. We don't know what it's from. It's out of our purview, out of our scope of care to mention what it's from. So that's a perfectly fine disclosure. Okay, I get asked about this a lot. There is something, you got the buyer, and there's something near the house that is so obvious and could be problematic that you might be a little bit embarrassed to mention it. So let me go through a couple of them. Let's say the buyers are purchasing this home to the far right, and it's kind of hard to miss that there's a school across the street. And that is still a disclosure issue because it's something that's not the ordinary, and people could complain about it later on. Now, the question is, what do you actually write down here? Because there's lots of things that you shouldn't write down. I just like something simple. Please note that there is a school adjacent to the property. Now, you don't want to say 15 feet from the property or half a mile, depending on what it is. There's something going on at the school. There's some risk involved of some sort, and we would like it on school property. And so people believe that that house on the right is part of the school property when maybe it's not. And it's kind of funny, well, funny in a way. I knew an agent that used that expression many times, and he's brought to court, and it worked very, very well for him. So it's a great expression. So it works. So here's this is in the South Bay. This is like Torrance, Hawthorne, LAX area where there's a lot of oil. And, a lot of people, when they see this photo and all that space there, they think, man, if I owned that, I would have houses built because, there'd be a lot more money in it. But there's actually, when it's this configuration, there's more money in the oil part of it. And oil derricks really don't make too much noise. They make some noise, not overbearing. Let's say you have a property, a buyer looking at the property in the rear left. You've got 3 houses there that we can see. And this buyer's looking at the one on the far right, the bright red roof. And they're hanging over the fence, looking at these things. And they're moving here from New Jersey or something. They have never seen an oil derrick. And they're wondering, well, what are these things? And do they go 24 hours a day? And the answer is generally yes. And so they're quite fascinated by it. So they've seen it, and I have to make a disclosure. And so all I'm going to say is that there are oil derricks adjacent to the home. If they ask me, well, what will happen to me? Is there vibration? Is there whatever? That really is outside of our standard of care. And I'll give you a better example than that. That'll really flesh it out. So this home, obviously very close to a freeway. This happens to be Interstate 10 in the West LA area, probably around La Brea or somewhere. So, the house is right on the freeway ramp. Now, some people would like the convenience. A lot of people wouldn't like that much convenience. And so what are people going to complain about? And what do you need to warn them about? Well, you're never going to come up with the whole list because certainly noise. Let's say you mentioned that there's a freeway nearby and you will be experiencing continual noise. Maybe the noise doesn't bother them. What bothers them is the exhaust fumes, or they're bothered by something like, it's exhaust fumes. It could be gas fumes. It could be diesel fumes. There could be all kinds of things that bother them. And I don't want to make a list. So rather than make a list and get into a big explanation, say there is a freeway near the property. Now, the question does come up, what does near mean? How close does it have to be? And there is no answer to that. It's your opinion. Like an airport being near is not going to be as close as this, but it can still affect the quality of life. So you have to look at what it is and could it affect the quality of life? Like a golf course, which I'll mention in just a moment. But now maybe that freeway is around the corner and a half a block away, and the sellers who are buying this property and will be affected by that proximity of the freeway, they just don't know it's there. Well, it doesn't make it, that's our job. We're familiar with the area. We know that fairly close to the home is a major issue, which could be a problem for a lot of people. So let me go to the next one here. So anyway, yes, disclose the obvious. I'll just put it that way. Here's some ways of doing it. Disclosing something that is near the property, and near is really your call, what you think most people would consider to be near. And here's some really good advice, and I'll have all this in the notes. Disclose what is there, not the details of what may bother the buyers about what is there. Do not get into a list. You may be bothered by this, you may be bothered by that. Just tell them that there are oil derricks there. There is a golf course there, not the details of what may bother them, because everybody's going to be bothered by something different and you don't know what it's going to be. So that's the first tip. And so like this one, as an example, there is a freeway near the house. Now, what does near mean? Near means it's close enough to affect the quality of your life. You don't want to say it's a quarter of a mile, a 16th of a mile, a block away, because then you're getting too specific and then they can argue with that particular point that you're mentioning. So there is a freeway near the house. Now that means in that disclosure that whatever is going to happen to you by having that proximity to the freeway is going to be part of your life. So that's just the way it is, and that's what you're going to have to deal with. And so it makes it a really easy way to provide it. If you get into more details, you can get into trouble. A school is close to this property. Now, if you have a school that's right across the street from the house and the buyers have kids, and that's going to be really great in a way, there's also going to be problems. Going to be school dances and sporting events, bells ringing, drop off pickup times, which are like gridlock. So it's not all going to be great, but you don't want to make a list because you will never make the list long enough. So to protect yourself, tell them what is there. Do not list out what is there, because you may have something missing from your list, but this usually will provide a ideal disclosure. So no list of specifics, just let them know what is there. I did a seminar a couple of weeks ago for the Rim of the World board, which is up around Lake Arrowhead. And an agent had a really good question. She said, I have a client that has lived in downtown Chicago their whole life. They're older couple, kids are gone. They want to move to Lake Arrowhead, a permanent move, their final move. And they have a small dog, and the home that they're buying has a bunch of little trails around. And so they are looking forward to taking their dog on a walk in the early morning, evening, daytime. It's going to be a big part of their life. But we have coyotes here, and they've never seen a coyote. You've probably heard of them, but in Chicago, they've never seen one. So I'm going to mention, maybe get a picture of a coyote, show it to them and say, be careful of these animals. They're dangerous to your dogs. And I think, well, that sounds good, but coyotes are not the only threat. I asked them, are you going to mention black widow spiders and rattlesnakes? What about birds of prey like hawks in the daytime, owls at night? They can come down and swoop down and pick up a small animal. You will never, ever end the list of things. So when you simply tell them make it generic, like the freeway is close to the house, a school is close to this property, whatever is involved in that is encompassed within that disclosure. Never make a list of specifics. No matter how many common things with airplanes, like let's say you're in the path of LAX, you got the approach, the takeoff, the deceleration, you got smoke, you just keep going. It's just part of living near an airport. So I wouldn't get too concerned about it. Okay, let's see, we have about 20 more minutes left. Getting a rough draft disclosure that you've put together into a final disclosure very, very quickly. There's a great way of doing it, and it's disarmingly simple. It's a free technique, so you don't have to buy it from me. You don't have to download an app, and it takes about 30 seconds. So let's go. I'll use myself as an example. I have the buyer. I'm doing my Avid thing. The sellers are not home. But I know they're on the way home, and I kind of want to get out of there before they return. I don't want to have any interface with them. I just want to do my Avid and date it and all that and leave. So my last room is the kitchen, and I see a couple of stains like this. And I think, okay, well, I got to say something here because it could be a problem. They kind of look like, I don't know, two small black mold stains noted. Well, that's litigious verbiage in disclosure. We can clean that up, as simple as that sounds, and maybe as obvious as it sounds. It's too litigious. So just drop off the things. You don't have to give numbers or small or colors. You don't need to mention much of anything other than what is there. So stains noted. If you say they are mold stains, then they're probably going to have a not a moldologist, but a environmental engineer come over and look at it. And then they may have a big bill to pay because they've got to, and a really big bill to pay because they've got to rip out the hall and have their moon suits on and do all this stuff, usually for no great purpose. But there may be a major mold infestation behind there, and it really does need to be addressed. So we need to have the disclosure right. We don't have x-ray vision. We don't know what's behind it. There could be something behind everything that we look at. So we don't even go in that direction. We tell them just what I've observed. If what I've observed, two small black mold stains noted, and you think, oh, mold, this can be a problem, they have so many days that they can recourse and bring it up. So I like stains noted. So a couple comments about a rough draft. Before I get too far along, any questions at all from anybody?
Doesn't look like it.
No? Okay. Okay, here's some really, really good advice. If you have the buyers, well, let me back up. If you have the sellers, you can do the Avid on a listing just about any time you want to. Not every time, but almost any time you want to. And that makes it really easy for you. But when you have the buyers, you got to wait till there's a deal and you can get in the house and so forth. So it's a lot more restrictive. So you want to make sure, and this is exceptional advice, if I may say so, a lot of lawsuits with this, that you never, ever complete the Avid during the home inspection. That's one of the worst things that we can do. You may think it sounds like a good idea, but it doesn't. One of the reasons why is because home inspectors have a very different standard of care than we do. They go up in the attic, we don't. They go under sinks, we usually don't. They go up on the roof. If it's climbable, we don't. And there's just lots of things they do. So they have a different standard of care. So we do not want to align ourselves too much with their profession. So for example, let's say deal comes together this afternoon and things are moving along very quickly. The buyers open escrow. And on Wednesday morning, I get a call from one of the real estate agents, usually the buyers, saying, hey, I really like what you've done. Would you personally do the inspection? So I'm out there in this hotel room, and let me just back up here. Yeah, okay. And I don't see anything to disclose. First of all, I'm not going to move anything out of the way. I mean, I'd open the door, and if the flooring was tile and there were some throw rugs around the bed, I do not pick up throw rugs. I don't pick up anything. Again, don't move pictures. I just leave things the way they are and look at them and see if I can determine if there's something suspicious about this. Well, let's say right behind that photo is a crack that looks just like that. Now that looks pretty bad, kind of looks like a mold infestation. I don't want to be responsible for it, and I'm not responsible for it because when I'm there in the exercise of a lot of the responsibilities of a real estate licensee, I don't have to do any of those things. So it's very important that you do your Avid prior to the home inspection showing up, because your avid is going to have an earlier date. And then there's no question that you were watching the home inspector and adding things to the avid. It's very easy to go outside of your standard of care if you do that. So that is, I think, a really, really great thing to keep in mind. And when they find this, when they move in, this, let me back up here, this picture of the mold, what looks like a mold thing, it's not my problem, because I was not required to find it, bury under something or look under something to find it. So to wrap this part up, always complete the avid prior to the home inspection. That's usually possible to do. And when you're going to meet your buyers at the inspection, which is a really, really good idea, it is one of the things that really decreases liability for you as a real estate licensee. So if you can get them to take one with you, that's good. Now they may have a professional home inspector, but it's good to have a supply of those forms. Do not delay the visual inspection because of pending repairs. If they've negotiated a lot of repairs, just go in there and do the inspection anyway. Usually when repairs are negotiated and taken care of, the content of the avid really does not change very much. So let me mention something about AVID. I went on eBay or one of those used items for sale, and you can get binoculars really cheap, or telescopes. And so there may be a temptation to carry some of those with you, because you can see things much more closely. But be careful about that. And then do later, days later, when the home inspection takes place and you have the buyers, do everything in your power to be there, everything in your power for them to be there. As I mentioned at the outset, buyers that do not attend the home inspection are the ones that usually sue. So buyers that do attend the traditional home inspection, it's less, far less litigious, because you've already done your visual inspection, so you don't have to worry about it, or shouldn't have to worry about it. Okay, let me check the chat room one more time for time's sake, and then I'll have to go here. Okay. One more up here. Robert Brand, you're the best looking man I've ever seen. Thank you so much. Okay, let's get going here. Okay, advertising issues, kind of switching gears here a little bit. And if you have any questions, just yell something out. And by the way, I think I mentioned this, but you can call me anytime. There is no cost at all. I will answer I do this all day long, 5 or 6 days a week. I can answer your questions. I like to do them by email, so I can copy in your manager or whatever. And that's a completely free service. I've been doing it for 3 decades, and a lot of people benefit from it. So anyway, that's available to you. So, and also, again, you'll be getting some notes after this. So advertising issues, some things when we're putting on the other side of the deal, we're not with the buyer, we're putting together ad copy, some things that are commonly used, but we really have to make a point of avoiding them, like home is totally remodeled. There is, in the court of law, California court of law, there is no home that is totally remodeled. It simply does not exist. They will find something that was not remodeled. So all we have to do is get rid of the word totally. So the home is beautifully remodeled to make it sound nicer. The beautiful, wonderful type terms are non-litigious. So the home's beautifully, it's a great line. It's a great incentive for them to look at it. But you're not setting yourself up for a fall by using language that could get you and or the agent you're working with into difficulty. Thumbs down on any usage in ad copy, and this is whether it's going to go in the cloud or you're doing it by hand or a printer is doing it. do not want to use ever words like, totally refurbished, completely renovated, fully rehabbed, something is throughout the kitchen or whatever. These are just litigious words because they bring with them a necessity for proof that they really are that way, and that can never be proved. The good advertising terms are the nebulous, kind of meaningless, but sound very nice words that kind of complement a home, but are hard to define. Beautiful, wonderful, bright, amazing. They work very, very well, far better than the technical aspects that we might relate. And when I was meeting in person for 30 years, I would sometimes bring up the word new. And my scenario was a buyer bought a dishwasher 3 or 4 months ago. He's selling the property now. He lived there most of his life, got a new refrigerator. First of all, is the refrigerator still new? And is it okay to advertise it? I was putting the flyer together, and he had suggested, tell him it's a new dishwasher. And I cautioned him and came up with better wording. Well, it's generally not considered new. I mean, when I ask a big group of agents, is a 6-month-old dishwasher new or refrigerator? Half of them say yes, half of them say, well, no, it's 6 months old. It's not new anymore. So the best expression I've ever heard is this dishwasher. Brand new is even worse because nobody knows what that means. The best wording I've ever seen for new and brand new and what do they mean, the thing that answers the question is newer dishwasher and kitchen. So if you ask a group of people, is a 6-month-old dishwasher a old dishwasher or a new dishwasher? Now there's some discussion about it, but when you ask them, should an agent who is at the property and observes a newer dishwasher, whatever that means, in the kitchen, is it a good idea to call it a newer dishwasher? And it is not. It's a litigious term as well. So I would drop that altogether. Nobody quite knows what it means. So here's one more example. Let's say you have the buyers and I'll change it around. You have the sellers, and they're kind of freaked out about some staining that they've seen in the garage area, and they're just concerned about it. So they want an explanation from the seller as to why there is a leak or something. So could you please contact your seller? So you look at the AVID and that the seller prepared, and you meet with them, and they say, you say the buyer really wants to know about this roof, and can we give them some background on it? Well, here's good background from you. The seller states, and these are quotes, it's got to be quote and unquote. We cannot ramble through this where nobody's sure what anybody's saying, and it kind of comes to an end, and it's like, what did they just tell me? So the seller states the roof leak was repaired 1 year ago today. The contractor's receipt is attached, period, end of quote. But the listing agent, I'm just back up here, did not do it that way. And the seller states that is even better because you got the quotation, the roof leaking, and who told you that. So that works really well. Much better than the way that the buyers had it, who are eventually going to try to sell it. Okay, on the pack rat room, this is pretty common. You're going through the property and you come across a room like this, and it's, I was very careful in taking this picture because I know if you can't even see in the room because there's so much stuff in the way, you're at a real disadvantage, and you really have to disclaim the room. But you can kind of get into this one. Some agents look around and they say, well, it looks okay. What they may not know is that there is a beehive or whatever, a wasp hive, that is kind of messing with the area, and they're leaving residue behind, but you can't see them because they're kind of skittish and you don't expect to see a wasp or a bumblebee or honeybee or whatever there. So when you see a room like this, the best thing to do when it gets anywhere close to this range is to disclaim the room. Or a kitchen that looks like this.
Robert?
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off, but since we have a few minutes left before we gotta end the meeting.
Yeah.
Take the time now to ask a few questions. I think we have a few around the room here.
Okay, good. Yeah, I'll ask them. Yeah. I mean, I'll listen to them.
I had a question about, I was a little confused with your example of the ceiling fan. It seems like if you have nothing to say about a room, you would say nothing noted. And why comment on the ceiling fan in an Avid?
It's something not
He
to.
said not to.
Yeah, not to. Do not mention the ceiling fan.
At all, right? Just
Not,
nothing,
not at all. Yeah, it's not a disclosure issue. Right.
nothing noted is appropriate language.
Yeah, I like that the best.
If it's not a red flag,
Yeah, it's not a red flag and it does not deserve a separate disclosure.
We had another question in the chat room
I have one too.
Danielle.
from Daniela.
Hi, Robert. Yes, this is regarding the home inspection. So for example, buyers that are buying out of state and then they cannot come to see the inspection. I was wondering if offering the service of doing it virtually, would it be good to be offered by us or by the inspector? How would that work?
Well, some home inspectors are doing virtual inspections. It's kind of debatable whether that's even a good idea, but as long as they make the choice and they set it up, I don't think they're a good idea. But because there's just so many things that really can't be viewed by the buyer because they're not really right there. I'm not a fan of them. I know it's a kind of a popular thing, but I would stay away from it if I could, and I would kind of advise against it because so far, unless things really change, there's just too many misunderstandings when the buyer moves in. You said this, I said that. No, that's not what I said. I was talking about this over there and that kind of thing. Okay. Anybody else?
Yes. Hi, Robert.
Hi.
I have a question regarding the pat wrap room and the pack rat room and the picture that you have there of that kitchen. When I run across something like that, I usually put occupants' belongings to prevent full view of all surfaces. Sometimes I suggest further investigation. Is that good enough, do you think?
Yeah, that should be enough. Whether you say room is too crowded to do a limited visual inspection, or you add to that something like, if the room is cleared up, I can be called back, and returned. That doesn't have to be said. That's a given. But yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay, thank you.
I like that. Yeah.
Robert, I have another question. When should we make recommendations on the Avid, or should we ever make recommendations on the Avid?
Generally speaking, on an Avid, we don't make recommendations per se. We just describe what we see and let others decide what they want to do about it. Like there is below the master bedroom, bathroom, there is some staining at the ceiling. Well, it's a pretty good chance that's the highest bathroom or water source in the house, that it's coming from a pipe under the floor. But so that's around close of escrow. There's not a lot of time to fix it if indeed the buyers prevail upon the sellers to get it fixed. So, I just have the wording kind of like I just mentioned, and see how things turn out, because that's not my fault. I've seen those covered successfully where the seller says, all right, let's grind everything to a halt here, just get this thing resolved. We are not aware of any kind of a protective surface or a exhaust cover or something like that. But if somebody says it's been there, let's check it out. And then you'd probably want to return to the property. And if it looks, you don't have to test anything. It's a very minimal type of exposure to the room and minimal commentary. You can, write something down in a response that's really not non-committal. I'll put something about that in the notes, by the way.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
Do we have any online?
Yes.
Rita has his contact information on the notes. Because he said we can contact him, but he didn't say how or the number.
Yeah, we'll get that all out to the office afterwards.
Right, we can get his contact information and send it to all of you when we send out this recording to all of you. Robert, we would love to have you back.
Well, I'd love to come back. And there are many, because I've been doing this for 32 years. There are a lot of companies that have me in every 3 months, quarterly or twice a year or something. And I have so much information. I never repeat myself. And I've always got new stuff coming up that's trending for lawsuits in California. And all you have to do is extend an invitation to me, and I can easily find sponsors and I can make it happen.
Yeah, okay, so that would be great. Well, I think we'll put you on a quarterly. I'll take that up.
Okay.
So thank you very much. Do anybody have any questions?
No, yeah.
Thank you so much. I'm so sorry to cut you off because right now, what you were talking about, that pack rat room, I was so interested. I was like, okay, tell me. So it's like a cliffhanger to the next time. So maybe we'll let you, if you agree, we'll have you come back sooner than 3 months from now and then start a every 3 months thing.
Yeah, I'd be more than happy to.
All right. Thank you so much, Robert. I appreciate your time.
All right. Thank you very much. Have a great rest of the day. And thank you. And I'll get the notes off to you right now.